Well, Kate, it's great to see you. I really appreciate you inviting me to participate in your 50th anniversary reflections. I've really had a wonderful career, most of it centered around the Chesapeake Bay and conservation for the last 35 plus years, and have worked alongside Alliance staff in different capacities that I'm sure we're going to touch on as we have a chance to talk.
So if you could just take a minute to explain, why do you support the Alliance? You yourself personally have been a contributor, certainly through our partnerships with VEE and some of our work, but could you talk about why you support the Alliance?
Absolutely. My history goes back a long way, not 50 years, but it goes back quite a ways, because I was fortunate enough to be at the very first Bay agreement signing, the choices for the Chesapeake Conference in 1983 that was held at George Mason University, that the Alliance really was one of the primary drivers of getting that conference going. And Fran Flanagan, your first director, was one of the major players in the whole Bay restoration movement area. So, I have appreciated many of the things that the Alliance has done now for several years. At VEE, we've also been a longtime partner with the Alliance. The first grant that we made to the organization was in 1989, if you can believe it, long before either of us were in our current positions. One thing I'm sure we'll talk more about is my involvement with the Citizen Advisory Committee and the great work that your staff has done to support those efforts as well. In 2017, as part of our own 40th anniversary, VEE recognized the Alliance as one of only 22 partners of excellence out of over 500 organizations that we have supported during our 40 plus years. So, really, really pleased and grateful for all that you got to do.
That's great, Joe. I really appreciate that as well. That's amazing. You were at the 83 conference. If I could flash back in time, that is a place I would love to be. So, thinking about the Alliance's role and kind of the Chesapeake Bay movement in general, can you talk about why the Alliance's work is meaningful to you and to the Chesapeake Bay as a whole?
Absolutely. I think one of the key issues that all of us need to continue to work on is broadening the constituency beyond the choir. And that's really the only way the Bay is going to be restored. And, really long-term public support and engagement is going to be so critical to ensuring that the restoration continues. And when I think of the Alliance, I think many of the things that need to be done, collaborations, partnerships, outreach, education, engagement, those are all things that you all do so well. And and in addition to coordinating the important work that's being done by the citizen and local government advisors to the regional Bay leadership, that again could not be done effectively without strong support from your staff.
So from your perspective, what do you think is the greatest accomplishment of PAC?
We have really done our homework on a lot of different areas and have championed several things, but I think if I had to boil it down to just a sentence or two, I would say number one thing that we've done is holding the Bay leaders accountable to meeting the goals of the TMDL and the other aspects of the current Bay Agreement. We've also offered practical feedback on programs and processes that maybe they didn't quite understand how real people think about things. And so I think we've helped them a lot in accountability, being transparent, and making things, or helping them understand how things are looked at by real people on the ground.
So Joe, you've talked a lot about the history of the Bay and how we've gotten to where we are today in 2021. So what is your hope for the Chesapeake Bay in the next 50 years?
Well, I hope I'll be around. Both of us will be around in another 50 years, Kate. What do you think? But in the short term, I hope that we're going to be able to celebrate 2025 as a milestone year for the Bay. We've made a lot of progress thanks to all of the actions that were taken, by individuals and businesses and governments and environmental groups and farmers and on and on. But certainly not time to declare victory and go home. One of the keys for us down here is going to be really, and across the region, is going to be having the next generation of leaders in the public staying committed to the restoration work and not to be satisfied with a degraded bay. Another aspect from the public standpoint is that you can spend a day on the bay and you can enjoy its beauty without ever realizing the underlying problems that exist. And so there's got to be ongoing education as well. Increased funding almost goes without saying, but increased funding from federal and state governments, along with more innovation and strategic tools, must be a priority, particularly to help states and localities deal with pollution coming from agriculture and urban stormwater. I think the Bay restoration goals must touch the needs of traditionally underserved areas and socially vulnerable communities, and more folks from those communities, including in particular more people of color, are going to need to become a part of the work of the restoration, better reflecting the region's overall population. I think if we do all of those things, then we'll really continue to make great progress.